What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So on Friday, we did have the big reveal for Grand Theft Auto Trilogy, the definitive edition, and it did spark some controversy, specifically around the visuals and the pricing, but we'll go over all of that here today. Also, we're going to be talking about another big Nintendo Switch release that is leaked early, although I guess that's kind of expected at this point. And we're also going to talk about Sony's big event coming up here this week that'll hopefully give us a look at one of the bigger third-party releases. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if new here to the SpawnWave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with Halo Infinite. Last year, they did show off Halo Infinite campaign gameplay, and didn't go over very well online. In fact, it got to the point where Microsoft decided, you know what, we're just going to delay this from the Xbox Series X launch into the following year, and now we're coming up on that release in December, but we still haven't seen any gameplay from, I guess, the revamped campaign that they have been talking about here and there. Well, looks like that's going to change this morning. Actually, about an hour after this video goes live, we can see this over on Twitter from the Halo Twitter account saying, "Prepare to battle against the Banished. Join us at 6 a.m. Pacific, Monday, October 25th for a special Halo Infinite campaign gameplay overview." So obviously, I think the biggest thing they do, just drop us in the campaign, show it off, actually play it, and not have like 80% of it just be a cinematic trailer. We've seen enough cinematics, I think, for the campaign. We need to see what they've improved and what their plans are for, what's been described as kind of like a free roam style Halo game, like a semi-open world. We need to see how this actually works in motion with Halo Infinite, especially since the last time we really saw it was, well, we got Craig, right? So here's hoping that Halo Infinite delivers, because we are coming up on that December release. And remember, the campaign is the paid part of the game. The $60 version of this game is just the campaign. The multiplayer is free. So, it has to be like at least good to sell at $60. It doesn't have that multiplayer to kind of hold it up this time. So we'll find out what happens, like I said, about an hour after this video goes live. Also, here's something out of left field, specifically with Microsoft and a game that they have in development. Let's take a look here over on VGC, where they say, Wu-Tang Clan RPG in the works at Microsoft, it's claimed. They go on to say, new studio Brass Lion Entertainment is currently developing an action RPG which will feature music from the Wu-Tang Clan, according to insiders. Now, this is according to Jez Corden for Windows Central and on the Xbox 2 podcast, where he had talked about hearing that in July, Microsoft was making a Wu-Tang game, and he wasn't really sure if it was Wu-Tang, the martial arts style, or the popular hip-hop collective, but was then later told that the game uses Wu-Tang Clan lore. And the game's soundtrack was created by the Wu-Tang Clan. And if we go over here, Jeff Grubb, GamesBeat, backed this claim up, even going on to say that it's a third-person fantasy RPG. Will feature seasonal content, will be a couple dozen hours in length. Look, we've been hoping that Microsoft would get creative outside of their big core franchises like Halo, Gears, and Forza, so why not Halo, Gears, Forza, and Wu-Tang? Oh, and if you hadn't already figured, you probably should get some sort of screen protector for your new Switch OLED. But we did get some actual tests for the hardness factor on the front screen. We can see this over at Jerry Rigs Everything, where he did different values for the hardness level. And, well, the Switch OLED didn't score very well, sitting around a 2, basically plastic, which we know it's a plastic film on the front, so that makes complete sense. And yeah, he kind of lit up a Switch OLED, but it was obviously for science to figure out how durable the system is when it comes to scratching, for example. And yeah, the determination is you should probably get a screen protector for your Switch OLED. Shocker, right? But the biggest thing is I would look to maybe one of the glass screen protectors so that doesn't get scratched. There are plenty of them now that have already hit Amazon. I believe even D-Brand's doing some. So yes, I fully recommend getting a screen protector for your Switch OLED, but if you want to see what happens when you start taking a blade to it, go check out the video. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this Grand Theft Auto Trilogy, the definitive edition. It was revealed on Friday with a full trailer, screenshots, and then of course the reaction from the internet. But first, let's go over the details, which does include the release date being a bit strange, starting with the digital release and then the physical release. The digital release will be November 11th. This will be on all platforms, Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch, which that's a big deal, obviously, for Nintendo to have these Grand Theft Auto games finally coming to a home console. They did have Chinatown Wars on their DS, but this is the first time these Grand Theft Auto games have gone to a Nintendo platform. And then following up December 7th, there will be a physical release. So you're gonna have to decide, okay, do I want to get these right away November 11th and just have it as a digital copy, or do I want to hold out for a couple of weeks and pick it up December 7th? I guess you could also double dip on them. I'm sure that'll happen with many people where they buy it twice. I mean, how many times has Rockstar gotten people to buy Grand Theft Auto 5 at this point? The Definitive Edition will be $60. However, looking at this, they will have two different parts of this collection go to different subscription services. Xbox Game Pass subscribers will have Grand Theft Auto San Andreas Definitive Edition on launch day, whereas Grand Theft Auto 3 will go to PlayStation Now on December 7th. If you are on PC, you will be looking towards the Rockstar Games launcher where it will release. So it doesn't look like it's going to have a Steam release. They also mentioned that iOS and Android devices can look towards this compilation in first half of 2022. They did go over all of the upgrades and different things they've done to update the games in a full trailer, and then also several screenshots showing off the Unreal Engine that they're using, a completely rebuilt lighting system, and the graphical improvements seem to really be overhauling the entirety of the game, which for some didn't go over well because, well, back then, we had a lot of cartoony visuals for these Grand Theft Auto games, and yeah, at times they look kind of strange, specifically the characters. I think the environments around the characters look good. I think they look fine, I mean, for what they were working with, but yeah, some of the characters at times just look off. But on top of the character models, they do have increased draw distances, smoother surfaces, higher resolution textures across buildings, weapons, roads, interiors, and more. And they did update the controls to be Grand Theft Auto 5 style, which is great because if you go back and try to play it on like the PS2, not the greatest now. So good to see that there. But again, the controversy stemming around the $60 price, I don't really get, because it's three good games. Like, these are games that will take you 20, 25, 30 hours just to get through the mainline story, and then there's a bunch of other stuff to do. Like, there's a lot of value with these games, and I understand the graphical style isn't going to be for everyone, but it was kind of a lose-lose situation almost for Rockstar Dundee, I believe, who's doing this. They could either completely change everything, and then you'll have purists or people who really liked the older cartoony style get annoyed because now you're taking it to a more realistic approach. And then you'll have people like who don't like the cartoony approach and they want it to be like Grand Theft Auto 5. But I'm sure it was tough for them to decide which way they wanted to go. They decided, hey, we're just going to build on what was already there. And I mean, it looks better overall, and I'm excited to pick this one up. It's just trying to navigate how I'm going to do this. Am I going to get digital and then physical? Because I would like the collection on a cartridge for the Switch. I mean, it's a big deal for Nintendo, and it is odd to see these three Grand Theft Auto games potentially on a single cartridge. I say potentially because we've seen Take-Two split up some of these larger games where you have to download a good portion of it. Think of LA Noire. I'm curious how they are going to do this. Will this 25 gigabyte plus file on the Switch really be put on a 32 gigabyte cartridge and they'll front the bill for that? Maybe Nintendo will get involved. Hard to say, and I'll keep you guys updated on that one as we head towards that December 7th release. But I think, for the most part, everything looks good here, and I'm excited as we head into November, where we can revisit some of these classic Grand Theft Auto games. Next up, let's talk about the next big Switch game, which has leaked online. Go figure. Spoiler territory for Mario Party Superstars. Okay, maybe not as much, but it does appear that this game, as we've seen with many Switch titles, has gotten out there, maybe broken street date, and then gotten dumped to a Switch, and then put online, and now it's just circulating all over the place. People are posting up gameplay of it already, and we're like, less than a week out, but like, it's Monday. The game doesn't come out till Friday, and people are already playing it on their modded or hacked Switch systems, and of course in emulators, I'm sure. But we can see this over on Twitter from Oatmeal Dome, who did also take a look into the game files themselves, saying the game leaked on the internet. Codename is HS. Can't really tell if that stands for anything, but the game engine is NintendoWare bezel engine, like Super Mario Party. That makes sense. And it appears to support voice chat via Nintendo Switch Online smartphone app. Not sure if that was announced. I don't think it was. Like, they had mentioned that there was, of course, online multiplayer, which is exciting. We have to go back, play the older Mario Party boards from back in the day, but with online play, that's really cool. to have Nintendo Switch Online voice app, I kind of thought Nintendo forgot about that application, so I guess at least it's being used for a newer title that could use it. I mean, come on, you have voice chat, you can kind of laugh and mess around with your friends as you are just completely ruining them in Mario Party. You gotta have that interaction there. So I guess it's something. Obviously, native voice chat on the system would be much more preferred than having to get your cell phone out to go into a chat room rather than just call them or fire up Discord. But what this really does is reinforce the fact that no Nintendo Switch title is safe. I mean, really, we saw Metroid Dread leak out early. We're seeing Mario Party Superstars, and we're gonna see this consistently going forward. So I do get more concerned about games that could be spoiled massively. Think about Metroid Prime 4 when that does come out. Breath of the Wild 2, like these are games that are like, they could really get spoiled online. Bayonetta 3. So Mario Party, obviously I'm not as concerned about. It just continues this trend though of these Switch titles leaking out like a week early. It's unfortunate that Nintendo is in this position to where they can't seem to keep these games from leaking out, but I mean, they also did ship like 20 million Switch systems that were completely exploitable with a paperclip. So we'll see what else can happen here as we go along. Maybe Nintendo can figure something out, but doesn't appear that they were able to do much about Mario Party leaking out early. Next up, let's talk about Sony and a state of play that is scheduled for this week. They announced it on Friday, and we can head over here to PlayStation Blog, where they say updates on upcoming third-party games for PS4 and PS5 are in store next Wednesday, October 27th, starting at 2 p.m. Pacific time. They go on to say this time out will be focusing on announcements and updates for upcoming third-party releases headed to PS5 and PS4. The show is looking to be about 20 minutes or so and will share new looks at previously announced games, plus a few reveals from our partners around the world. And these kind of state of plays are hard to predict because third parties could be anyone. Like if it's Sony and they're like, oh, we're gonna talk about first party stuff, you can kind of narrow it down to, okay, maybe Sucker Punch will be there, maybe Insomniac or Sony Santa Monica. But like, it could be anyone here, right? And Sony's been signing a lot of deals with different third parties, I guess be second parties, creating games specifically for PlayStation. But we have had some games announced previously, like Pragmata, which we haven't seen much of after its initial announcement from Capcom. We could also see Final Fantasy 16, and in fact, that's one I hope that if they are going to do it, they close out with it. I know Forspoken is up next, and that might be something they want to lean into with Square for spring of 2022, but they weren't at Tokyo Game Show with Final Fantasy 16. Maybe it's because they were preparing for this state of play that's set up specifically for third parties, and it's almost like Square is setting up this roadmap of releases where they have Forspoken, Final Fantasy 16, and then whatever they're going to do with Final Fantasy VII after the remake and how they ended that one, maybe Forspoken to start off 2022, then we have Final Fantasy 16 to close out 2022, and then we start hearing more about Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 in 2023. Or maybe they close out this whole thing with Silent Hill from Konami and Sony, and Nate finally ends up being right. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about an unfortunate delay that has hit one of Nintendo's games for the holiday. We can see this over on Twitter. This from Nintendo of America saying, "Hello troops, Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp, which was set to launch on December 3rd, will now release for Nintendo Switch in spring 2022. The game just needs a little more time for fine-tuning. You'll be battling with Andy and friends soon. Thanks for your patience." And I don't really have an issue with them delaying this game out because, like, Advanced Wars, I would like to see a new one. Clearly, this appears to be something Nintendo is just kind of dabbling with to see if people still remember Advanced Wars. They're having WayForward do it, which I think is a pretty cool partnership to have here, because if this does work out and sell at least within expectations, they can then work with WayForward for maybe a brand new one going forward. That'd be good to see, but this game cannot come out messed up, broken, or busted just for the sake of making it into the holiday season, because there is a core audience that is going to buy this game. I don't necessarily believe that a bunch of people are just going to walk into the store and be like, oh, cool, Advance Wars, and they're just going to buy it. So to me, this game has to at least be quality. I know they're based on, obviously, the older Advance Wars games, but they have to come out and be quality. So at least that the hardcore Advance Wars fans are happy with it. Spring 2022, I think is good as long as it's not like sometime around like some massive releases. At least it sounds like it's not going to show up like right in that last week of February. Maybe springtime could just be in April. like I said, as long as they get more time and it comes out as a quality game, I'm completely fine with that. But we'll see what WayForward has for us spring 2022 with Advanced Wars. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a little poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, what do you think of the new Grand Theft Auto Trilogy graphics and art style? 50% said I like the visuals, 38% said I'm indifferent to the visuals and art style, and then only 13% said I don't like the visuals at all. There were a lot of people talking about this and making noise online, especially on like Twitter and social media, and I kind of looked at that, then I looked at the like to dislike ratio on the video itself for the trailer, and like people seem fine with what they're seeing. So I kind of think it's just a small group of people specifically. I mean, really for this one, I know that tends to happen online as we see with games that get a lot of pushback, like Pokemon, and then it sells 20 million copies. But this one specifically, I look at and I say, okay, I don't think there's that many people who are upset with the idea of those visuals. I think there are like way more people who are just excited to see these games come back, get some attention when it comes to being remastered and released on current platforms with better controls, because the games themselves are very good. Like you can spend quite a bit of time here in this collection. So I think for the most part, everyone's excited to see these make a return in November. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Travis saying, John, the comment of the day response resonates here. I'm an IT manager and I am always in front of a server doing reports or database, and when I get off, the last thing I want to do is use a PC or have to troubleshoot a game. I just want it to work. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If you're in front of a PC all day for work, 8-10 hours a day, you might just want to go home, sit on the couch, watch TV, watch a movie, or yeah, just play your console. It just works easily. It's not a whole thing maybe to set up and troubleshooting drivers and all this. But it's funny you mentioned that though, because as I was thinking about that, I started to realize that like when I worked in retail for games, it got to a point where I didn't really want to play games when I went home as much, because obviously it starts to blend into work where you're at this retail store for at times 10, 12 hours, even if you're working a longer shift. And I haven't had that feeling with YouTube at all. So that's good, obviously, but it was reminding me of that I wanted to get into like this retail job at like a game store because it sounded so cool at the time. And then as I'm working at this store, I'm realizing that I'm getting less and less invested in games as a hobby. It was certainly a strange realization while I was behind the counter there. Actually, if you do work at a game store now, let me know down in the comments if you have had that happen to you before, where maybe you went on this run of like, I don't really feel like playing a game. I was just around them for like 8, 10, even 12 hours at the store all day. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Today was the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy reveal with the visuals, the art style, all the details, the pricing. Let me know your thoughts around all of that, as it did seem to bring up a lot of conversation and controversy. And then what are your best guesses from third parties that would be at Sony's State of Play? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.